Hey, pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Glad you were able to take a break from all the work that you're doing. And so, as the pandemic continues to create uncertainty across the board throughout industries and globally, financial institutions have a critical role in the economy's recovery, specifically as relates to the driving force of the economy, of course, small businesses. The Payment Protection Program, PPP, of course, was put in place to assist SMEs during this time, and it's up to banks and a few fintechs to make sure this actually happens. Quickly, you all had to ramp up and deal with the mayhem of this loan program. And so, Stuart, what was key in your approach to managing the process?
Yeah, thanks for that. Uh, and I'll try and get through this without too much PSTD. But we really the the secret for us was teamwork in the bank and a sort of absolute focus on our customers. And as you said, the context to this, which sometimes you lose, in the process of running a bank. There's lots of regulation and things that you need to meet, and things that have to get done. I think I'm proud of the way that the team at Valley kept focus on the humans that were involved in this story, and we were clear as we went through this that this was about helping people at the end of the day, helping our customers and their communities.
Absolutely. And I know you mentioned in a previous conversation about that startup-like approach that you guys had. Can you tell us
Yeah,
more about that?
yeah. So I don't think we all sat down to replicate a startup when we did this, but certainly as a team, I think on reflection, the only way for us to be successful and to support our customers and our communities was to kind of reframe the way that we would approach this. And time was a forcing function for that, for us and for our customers. Typically, if you're working in a financial institution, and many of us are trying to change the way we work, but they are structured, around departments and silos. And really, if we'd approached it in that kind of traditional way of getting something done, we wouldn't have served our communities. So, I think we were able to, to think about the situation and plan, and in some ways, kind of reflecting some of the lessons. They're well established in sort of Japanese production lines. It was for us. It was about iteration, so planning, and then doing, and then checking where we were, and then adjusting. So it's not to belittle the amount of effort across the whole team. We didn't just swarm on this and then everybody just did what they thought best. We organized ourselves as a multidisciplinary team. Very much in my mind, that's my experience of working in startups. We were clear about who the business owners were. So, there were a couple of members of the team that were driving this. So Rick Kramer and Justin Black were that spearheaded this as a team. But it wasn't about unilateral decision making. We were swarming on problems, surfacing them and solutions, and taking decisions. So, what I was impressed with was the way that we were able to effectively test multiple ideas quickly, and let go of lower performing ideas probably quicker than you traditionally would do in a bank. And so it felt very startup like during the process. Probably the long hours contributed to that as well.
Absolutely. And so you mentioned, having iterations and being flexible, and I totally get it. So In a past life, I was leading project management for application development, and being agile was key for controlling large projects and like reducing risk.
Yep.
And for the audience, agile is just being flexible and breaking down projects to short iterations, testing and improving each stage as you go versus what's called the waterfall approach, where once you start the project, the only time you stop is at the end, hoping no changes were needed. So for sure, it makes sense that agile definitely kind of was successful here. And so when those applications started to come in, how did your team manage the upsurge?
Yeah, well, we knew from what was happening, sort of in the economy and outside, that there was the regulation was coming. Quite honestly, the calls started um, pretty early on, and we were in a tough spot because, and you know, uh, until the SBA, the government agency, actually clarified the program, we were unable to materially help some of our customers. What we did was we created a in old school, like an expression of interest web page. So we started to collect customers who we knew, if they left their details, were in a spot where they needed this type of help. And then I think very early on we decided, and this is some of that iteration, there was a number of routes we could go. My background is digital and technology, and I actually think the very best digital propositions that have a human element to them. They're human centered. We could tell by these conversations that were happening in the call center and that our relationship managers were having, that having that relationship with us as a community bank was going to be important. So we devised a model where we basically stapled a relationship manager to every application. So if you were a small business and you went through this process with us, you had a human. We tried to enable that human with technology. We iterated on that as we went. But day one, the most important thing for us was that if you were a business, you were one of our customers or a prospective customer, that this wasn't, that the answer for us was not to just put you through some high volume application process. We wanted our customers to know that we were there and we were working for them. And so that, we think, and the feedback we've had from our customers, that was a differentiator. And then we started to think about the technology solutions that could enable that. And again, some of the things that you would do in a startup, with agile sort of methodologies, we knew were important, because the scale of what was happening, for us, this was large scale. We ended up with hundreds and hundreds of people on this program. We're drawing to the end of it now. We've done over 10,000 loans. It's over $2.2 billion. We think that's something like 170,000 people who've received a paycheck through this program in our communities. But the level of scale compared to where we would normally be on an SBA is kind of, I'll use the word advisedly, was unprecedented for us. So we knew we needed to enable some of this with technology, and as I say, like some of those agile techniques that are important. So we worked hard on creating a process flow, and we had a lot of talented people contributing to this, both from the front line talking to customers and operationally, and did a really fantastic job of visualizing where we were, and enabling therefore our frontline staff to have informed conversations with their customers. If you registered your interest, a week before the program came out, we were waiting for the program details to be clarified. You know, Friday we had final interim details. We went live. Our first loan was like 2 a.m. I'm in Austin, in Austin, so we had people on the East Coast, you know, up until the middle of the night, 3 a.m. plus, putting through those first loans. But yeah, being able to then let people know where they were in the queue, how we were progressing, was really important. We couldn't have done that without the underlying technology, but it was all about enabling the human conversations.
Absolutely. And so you mentioned, being human-centric is definitely beneficial for customer engagement and definitely having people on the front line just getting things done. But when it comes to automation, the end-to-end learning process, which factor do you think was critical for leveraging technology for automation?
Well, I mean, this was the fun and games of it all. So the SBA system for loading the loans is called eTran. And we ran several tracks here. As I say, we were testing and iterating quickly. So some of us tried to pursue some automation possibilities. We were looking at the way that we might be able to bulk upload loans, because at the front of the process, we were starting to get, you know, way more efficient in processing the applications, getting all the necessary details from our customers. And we had a constraint, we had a bottleneck, which was the actual government system itself. We found a specification for bulk loading loans in XML. It was dated November 2000. Just to give you an idea of the sort of level of technology we were dealing with. It had several iterations. There wasn't a test system. There wasn't a spec. We went through that and just iterated until we got to a point where we actually successfully bulk uploaded a loan. And then we used that. We had another parallel track where we were using like RPA, robotic process automation, which is essentially filling in the web form rather than a human. We got a few loans through that, but I'll honestly tell you the secret sauce to the success was people. Unfortunately, the government system, you know, couldn't cope with a level of automation for entering loans. We learned that there were periods where the eTran system was quieter, happened to be in the middle of the night, and we organized ourselves around that. We gamified it, so the people entering it were, you know, running leaderboards with, you know, prizes. That wasn't to trivialize it, but that was to, you know, to help people through entering a loan application at 3 a.m. at night. They knew they were doing it to help people, but you know, having a prize helps as well. So the automation thereafter downstream is where I think we made some good strides. So as I say, we had technology enabled process here, but when it actually came to booking the loan, we were able to automate that part of the process pretty successfully, and it enabled us to, you know, take our backlog and get them through the system quickly, and then get people their money, which was you know, obviously the most important thing.
Absolutely. And so you mentioned, loan administration, but how about the forgiveness process? How do you plan on handling that?
Yeah, have you got any ideas? Yeah, so we're working on that right now, and again, some guidance just came out that clarifies it. But you know, I spoke to some friends with businesses who were trying to get these triple P loans, and yeah, frustrated with their banks. And I know I'm a banker now, a recovering fintech. But I have to say, it's a pretty hard position to be in when the guidance isn't there. And, you know, we really care about our customers and our communities. You know, not being able to give them the answers because the guidance isn't there is tough. Yeah, so we plan to handle it the same way. We want to make want to make the process human-centered again. We want to make sure that we understand what our businesses and customers are required to provide, and enable them to do that, to certify the forgiveness in the best way possible, and then to automate that downstream process. And we're evaluating various methods at the moment.
Absolutely. And so I know a few fintechs are actually trying to tackle that forgiveness process. And during our startup session, there's going to be a few that'll tackle that as well. So stay tuned.
I will.
Um, Another question I just want to understand is around regulation and compliance. And so everything moving, everything being new, how do you manage those changing regulations and even managing fraud?
My view is that you have to build it in from the beginning. Here we were dealing with, a short-term, hopefully, a short-term activity. It wasn't, and I know there are banks around who just took a more kind of, or a less risk-averse view than perhaps we did. We wanted to be sure that we were, understanding the purpose of the loans, and doing that level of certification that we were happy and that we were being compliant with issuing those loans. And I'm sure most of us on a call know the LA Lakers don't really need a PPP loan or Shake Shack, right? We wanted to put that level of due diligence into our process, and in the multidisciplinary teams we had those guys alongside us. We also knew that we needed to act, we needed to do, and that we would iterate as the guidance came out, and that's how we coped with it. But yeah, it's the bank's job, right? We have to be compliant.
Absolutely. And so I feel like immediately people were able to work from home, and technology has become the key to like managing even simple day-to-day activities. And so I
Well,
wonder,
that's a great point, Kaswana, because I mean, some of the context to all of this effort and that, I didn't give actually up front on this is, I'm talking to you from Austin. I live in Austin. The bank's mainly centered around the eastern seaboard. I think over 90% of our non-branch staff right now are working from home. When all this kicked off, there was a scramble. Like, I'm set up to work from home because I don't live near the head office. But we had a lot of people that were learning the new kind of rules and the new ways of working. So everything I just talked to you about, we did in a distributed remote fashion. So that added another dimension to the to the achievement, I think. And we look forward to getting back together at some point in a room as a team to reflect on what we were able to achieve.
absolutely, so the world became digital almost overnight.
Yep.
So throughout the whole process, honestly, what was the key learning from this process?
For us, I think, and I know we conscientiously want to think about the momentum that we created as a team, and I think for us, I'm going to say our key learning was that you get the right people in the room with the right amount of talent. It doesn't really matter what the problem is. You can solve it, and that to me reflects that startup ability. Whenever I considered working in a startup or joining a startup, of course the problem had to be interesting, but I actually believed it's about the people that you're working with. And there's definitely a sense at Valley that we've got some outstanding people, and we're bringing talented people into the organization, and therefore there isn't a problem big enough for us.
Amazing. And so just to close off, what do you think the future of small business loans looks like?
Oh, wow. So I'm going to now click into being the sort of digital focused technologist. I think the future of this is tech enabled. I think we're going to see, a lot more around the experience of small business loans being enabled. So the role of data, we spent a lot of time orchestrating people providing the right documentation. I think in the future we go and get that information and bring it into the bank. You as a customer kind of enable us to do that. I think we'll see a lot more automation through processing and decision making than perhaps we've got right now. And therefore, I think at the end of the day, the experience changes from a customer point of view. As a customer, I don't really care if you've automated the back office processing or decision making. Like, the important thing for me is that you understand me, you understand my needs, and you can enable me to go about my business. And I think that's the role that automation and data is going to play to improve how we do that stuff currently as an industry.
Absolutely, amazing, thank you. And so
You're welcome.
I'll definitely take a look at what's happening in the Q&A box. Let's see here, we'll take one question. So how did this impact the due diligence process?
In terms of understanding our customers?
Absolutely.
So there was, a large proportion were customers we already knew. We did take on, I'm going to say, roughly split like an 80-20 here, between 10 and 20% new customers. But we knew most of the customers that were coming through. Our due diligence, we worked to the regulation, and then we did put these through credit risk. And those guys did a great job in terms of that due diligence.
Okay, and just one more. How is Valley Bank using plug and play to solve some of your issues related to COVID?
So we love plug and play. We're talking to and working with actually a few folks on the roster. We're looking explicitly at the moment around gamifying learning. And a lot of this is about bringing our associates up to speed with where COVID is, what it means for our customers, and how we might be able to solve some of that. And then we're looking at ways that we can bring some of these relief programs to market quicker. So whether that's from a consumer point of view with forbearance and deferment, but also you mentioned one, Kaswana. We're actively looking at how we solve for the forgiveness part of PPP as well.
Amazing. On that note, let's end here. Thanks a lot for your time, Stuart. This is great.
Yeah, enjoyed it.